So one thing interesting you told me at one time that you help in the jobs, you help people something about making the job more human, more, what was it like? It was interesting.
So it's what I call bringing the personality back to the
Yes.
business.
Bringing the personality back to the business.
Yeah,
Okay. So
yeah.
what does that mean?
Yeah, it's really interesting because when I start to really engage with people in the corporate world, what happens is that there's that kind of positioning or a persona that shows up or that needs to show up. And one of the things that when I work with my clients, I talk about is that we're the same human being that shows up at work and shows up in your home. So really bringing the personality back to the business is looking at what are the qualities, what are the traits, what are the strengths, the passions that you have as a person that you can also utilize in the workplace to make the workplace alive for you again.
But they keep saying that in the workplace, keep it professional. When you write email, keep it professional. Don't let your emotions involved. You know, like I'm an emotional person. Sometimes, like when I send an email to people, because I sort of understand where they're coming from, whether it's a client or a supplier or whatever it is, I try to put some emotions in it. You know, because on messaging and emails and WhatsApp and all this, there's no emotions really. So sometimes saying, let's say, writing in block letters sounds rude, you know, and sometimes just the caps lock could be up. So how is that? I mean, is this a new sort of trend that it bring more personality and emotion compared to what we used to know? Keep it professional and just be, you know.
Yeah.
So
one of the things that I really believe in is that humans are emotional beings, right? And that's really our edge. That's what differentiates
you
us.
said emotions are energy
in motion, right?
Yeah.
So emotions are energy in motion, and it's really important to consider emotions. One of the things or a belief that is created is that emotions are not professional. Right?
Yes.
There's that kind of belief being held, and that's, you know, scholars and research has showed that actually 80% of the reason why some leaders are more successful than others is because of their emotional intelligence.
Okay.
And emotional intelligence is the ability to actually use your emotions in a way that I know myself, I know who I am, I know my strengths, I know the areas that I also need to develop. Yeah? And I know how to motivate myself. And I know how to use that in a social setting in order to be a better leader, a better influencer, a better person. So actually that's where emotional intelligence lives. And how can I use empathy?
But it's quite a challenge for the people who are, let's say, have, let's say, slightly challenges in controlling their emotions, because someone could just write an email to his boss and just put all his emotions out.
Yeah.
I think it's about having your emotions sort of work for you in the workplace, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Checked in. Right? And knowing how to use that as energy that will support you and motivate you in order to know what's the next step for you. And to use it in a social setup.
How do you guys know that it's been working? Like when you apply it to companies and you do that, you know, like executive coaching, how do you know that this is working? Is there any statistics? Are there any studies that actually doing that, let's say, the past 5 or 10 years has brought more results, more better working environments than, let's say, the previous 10 years or something? Is there any numbers, any statistics?
There's a lot of numbers and statistics, absolutely. And we talk about KPIs and ROIs, or return on investment, when we talk about corporate coaching. There are different ways to measure. Right, we need to measure our results. Like everything, right? When you go to the gym, you want to measure how you're doing. It's the same thing in the corporate. And one of the ways we measure that is what we call maybe a 360, which is a feedback or feed forward from the people you work with. It could be from an assessment online. And one of the things that has constantly been showing up is that the return on investment when someone invests in themselves personally and professionally with coaching is actually has a direct link with their performance.
Okay.
And when your performance is increased or maybe showing up better, your results financially will impact the organization.
Is rewarded
positively, absolutely. So there are those kind of return on investment ROIs.
Okay, now regarding the workplace, regarding jobs, like, okay, I want to touch on a few points. One point is that concept that we all sort of are taught that, you know what, finish your school, finish university, get a job.
Yes.
You need a job, get a job. I think that's been changing the past, I don't know, decade or two, that the startups, the entrepreneurship and all that. But there's still the mindset of, I need a job, I need a job. And especially with what's going on in the world and the situations, people, let's say, I understand we have to pay our bills at the end of the day, so it's easy for one person to say something that he's not living that experience of someone else. But that mindset about, okay, I need a job, I can't. Or people who get into depression after losing a job. Why is there a misconception, I would say, or a wrong understanding that a job dictates who you are, And like something I've listened to, like, I don't know, a long time ago by Jim Rohn, he said, you work hard on yourself, you work hard on your job, you make a living. You work hard on yourself, you make a fortune, But still, do you see that in the world around us, that people are so tied up to the job, they feel that the job dictates who they are?
And I like the word dictate. I think as you're talking, I could see the people around us and how we define ourselves through the different roles that we do. And we call those the roles, because some of the roles, we have the executive role that we play in our life, right? And that could be the job that we do. That also could be the role that we take. So for women, sometimes it could be also being a mom. That's also an executive role that we take. So all of those are external roles. And those roles, we play into it sometimes in a way that defines us and defines who we are. And I think the challenge is to actually not just get stuck with those executive roles, but also look internally to an internal role. Who am I as a human being? What's important to me? What are my traits? And so some of the things that might show up is I'm creative, right? Or I am a great communicator. So really kind of define that inner role in addition to the executive role that we play. Because we don't play one executive role, we could play different executive roles. And it's important to, I think where you're pointing is to not only define ourselves through that executive role, but also look at what potential is there. If we look at the different aspects of ourselves that are available to us, that will open up other roles in our world. And that's really, really important to have access
to. But a lot of people don't see that.
Absolutely.
They see, let's say, being a brother or a father or a mother or a sister or an uncle, they see that it's like, okay, this is brought on out of their control, but they don't see that as a role. Their role for them is their job. And the moment they don't have a job or they lose a job, they're like I'm done. And they don't. We've all been there when we lose our jobs and we feel like the world's gonna just crash on our head and all that. So we know that feeling, and it's okay to be scared. It's part of living. But what sort of disturbs me is that we just are attached so much to something called job that we're unable to take risks. I understand what you're saying about roles and besides a job, but I'm saying like one thing interesting in the movie for George Clooney in Up in the Air, that when people are devastated when they are fired, he told one guy, I think was in his 50s or something, what did you want to be when you were a kid? I forgot what that guy say that he wanted. Then George Clooney in the movie asked him, how much did they pay you to give up on your dreams? You know? But it's interesting, again, I don't want to sound like on the sort of the, there is a progress because I'm seeing more people
who are stepping into entrepreneurial.
yes, and
Yeah.
I'm seeing people when they're left, and when they're fired or there's downsizing in the company or whatever, that they're actually taking this as an opportunity to look back and what do I enjoy doing? What am I passionate about? And they're digging into things they've sort of shelved for 30, 40 years. And again, they face that, that sort of, I don't want to say bullying, but that's, you really want to be a musician at 45? Do you really want to be but there's a lot of people that change from being in the low business to being whether a chef or a singer, and so I appreciate that change that is going on. So what can we do to improve that?
Yeah, I think.
What should people know?
I think one of the things that you're pointing to is that there's more openness or acceptance for people to really explore what else is possible other than just the job. I mean, when I stepped into coaching, I started my journey in 2008, but I remember before I stepped into coaching as an executive coach or as a profession by itself didn't exist. So actually, a lot of professions have not existed and are actually existing now. And in the next 20 years, we're going to see new professions existing and coming alive and surfacing, especially now that we're going through this pandemic that we're going through. One of the things I really like to think of is that this pandemic has not been an initiator to anything, but rather an accelerator to what the world is wanting to happen. It's just accelerating it faster. It's not initiating anything that wasn't there.
And more people are appreciating their life actually when they're seeing what's going on with other people.
Absolutely.
And people who are, let's say, unfortunately dying at a young age. I'm seeing other people that are appreciating that, you know what, maybe we just should slow down, maybe we should appreciate that.
And in addition to that, it also is allowing us to start to look at what else is possible, right? Because a lot of the jobs that have been there are shifting and transforming and looking different. And even, I mean, both of us are parents, me and you, and we know that our kids now, what used to work for us doesn't work for them. Yeah, because the jobs that they're going to be doing as well are not going to be maybe available. So go and study engineering might not be available for him in 20 years.
Absolutely.
So it's really important to start to, I think the kind of invitation here for all of us is to not define ourselves with what we do, but rather with who we are. Because who we are will always allow us to expand our range. So really take a kind of a pause where you start to really look at what's important to me as a human being. Who am I? What do I want? And what excites me? Those three questions.
But isn't it easier said than done?
Oh, yes.
I mean, it's easy for us to sit here and say that this is what a person should do. But how do you deal with that emotions when someone comes to you and tells you, listen, Banan, I have kids, I have school, I have this, I've been fired, it's been 1 year that I'm out of job. I mean, how do we put it into practice in real life? And with more people losing their jobs or companies downside, how do we approach this humane side and the, I don't want to say, the actual problems that people face? How can you tell someone, okay, go figure out what you want. When you find out what you want, work on it. So this is
I don't do that though. Coaches don't do that. But thank you for pointing this, because you're pointing towards, our basic human needs. And safety and security and home and shelters is a basic human need. So unless I have that, I cannot think of what do I want and what excites me unless I have my basic human need in place. So it's really important to be pragmatic also in the way that we approach things. So how am I bringing safety and security into my life right now? Because that's the main priority.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then after I get that in place, I can start to look at the other areas that I want to build towards. So pragmatically speaking, it's really important to have um, kind of the ground condition
Okay.
for me as a human being to be able to really, I don't want to say survive, but rather have enough for me, my family, to have food and shelter, basic human needs, right? Safety and security.
Priority. This is number
Priority.
one.
That's the number one. Be it a job. So either be it a job or an entrepreneurial, creative consultancy.
It doesn't have to be a perfect job, yani, just at the beginning, at least until.
Yeah, and that's where you talked about risk, right? And that's maybe where we talk about, what traits do you have that will allow you to explore, right? So what's that explorer part of you that will allow you to see what else is possible?
Exactly.
Because you could be in the insurance industry. You're not the insurance. It's not the label. You're not
your label, exactly.
Yeah, there are other ways that you can use your knowledge and skills, because you don't want to throw those away. You have your backpack of experience, your skill sets that you want to use and bring that alive in a creative way. So what other ways can you bring that in addition to a job?
In addition to a job.
Yeah. So it could be a consultancy, or it could be kind of a freelance role. And that's where entrepreneurial comes in.
We're trying to break the stereotypes, because there is still that stereotypes about part-time job or consultancy.
Yeah.
Like sometimes when I tell people, do you think about being a consultant? It's like a consultant is like this something huge that they think they weren't born for. It's like when you bring somebody from the other side of the world, he's a consultant.
Yeah.
So people in a way have lack of confidence, maybe misconception about consultant. You've been working in this business, for instance, for the past 20 years in marketing, media, whatever it is. Why can't you be a consultant? I mean, you don't have to be a consultant for instance, Microsoft at the beginning, though you could. You could start with the smaller companies, the companies that are starting up today, and you have 15, 20 years of experience in that specific field. What's wrong with offering them? So I think there's a stereotype that about part-time consultancy, freelancing, and all this, that is, I think, changing, but it's still there.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that I do with my clients, when I sit with them, I ask them, what's your dream? What's your dream?
Do they know?
It's really interesting, because it's a space where people start to access what's important to them.
Absolutely.
So what's your dream? And once we start to think of what's the dream, you start to really understand, if these are the things I want to create, what's one thing I can do today that will take me closer to that dream? And then what's the other next thing that I can do that will take me closer to that dream? And if being in a job will help me access that, then great.
So be it.
So be it. And if not, what else is available for me? What's one step I can take today that will take me closer to that? And that's your wide, important goal that you want to hold for yourself. We call it the WIG, right? That's your wide, important goal. And once you hold that clear, you start to find ways to become creative in order to access and go to that. Achieve these things. I personally work, I'm a coach, but I also have my coach, right? And I had a conversation yesterday with her, and we one of the things that I personally like to explore constantly is, what is it that I want to create for myself every day? It's not a goal, but what is it that I want to create for myself every day that motivates me, that keeps me going?
Like the gas or the engine.
The the battery, absolutely.
Yes,
and the invitation to all of us is to notice when you wake up in the morning, what's that one thing that you want to make sure that you have that will take you closer to creating that?
I think the younger generations are more, everyone could be adaptable, but I think the younger generations, the ones that are coming out of college now, have a more acceptance to these things than, let's say, other generations.
Absolutely.
That, hey, okay, like today is not promised to me, or the future, or tomorrow, I mean, is not promised. What can I do today, or how can I make the best out of my day? Because everybody is living in a way, in a sense that life is guaranteed.
Yeah.
So okay, tomorrow, fine, it's Friday. So
and that's where we talk about the discipline. What disciplines do I need to bring into my life to create what is it that I want to create? So start with thinking, what's your dream? And then after you start to kind of really create things around.
And it's okay not
clarity.
to own your dream.
Absolutely. And it's okay to actually have more than one dream.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. It's okay. And sometimes people ask me, and it's okay. I've been in stages when I don't know.
Yeah.
And it changes because
it does change.
We change as well.
Absolutely.
We get wiser. We might see it, but let's say the dream is a bit unrealistic.
Yeah.
But I totally agree that. What is your dream?
Yeah, what's your dream? And then start to really kind of bring it down. You start to look at the big picture and you start to really look at yourself today and create the journey, create that path that allows you to reach there. And by the way, there's no promise to actually reach there.
But at least
but now you're closer to something that you want to create for yourself.
It's like saying, think with the end of mind. Which is I think part of the 7 habits.
Absolutely.
Think of the end
Start with the end in mind.
And where do you want to come back?
And then you start.
And again, we're not saying this is easy, but we're saying that at least one should try.
Absolutely. And that's where the conversations with a mentor, a coach comes in, right? Because that's where you give yourself full permission to explore. There is no right or wrong, but there is access to that potential for you to maximize your potential professionally and personally to see what else is possible for you.
When you're saying a mentor or a coach, I mean, are they easily accessible and available nowadays? I mean, are there a lot of these people? I always looked for a mentor when I started my in my 20s, but I really found, I mean, it's really difficult. Like the ones that you would say are mentors don't have time for you, like they're in another world, but is there more access to these people?
I think people have now identified that stepping into mentoring is actually giving back as part of the community and serving the community. So in terms of mentoring, depending on the industry, it's becoming more available. People are more aware and knowledgeable about the need for that. In terms of coaching, I mean, currently where we are living in this time and age, absolutely there's a lot of coaches as a profession that you can access.
So what's the difference between
coaching and mentoring?
Yes.
So
everybody's going to ask, like, what's the
difference? Absolutely, So coaching is really a relationship between the coach and the client, where you go through a thought-provoking and creative process to maximize that person's potential, personally or professionally. So that's and it's a service where you actually pay. And it's a relationship where you want to go from point A to point B, and the coach is your partner walking with you. A mentor is different. It's a different hat that is there, and the mentor doesn't have to be a paid service, although it could be. A mentor is someone who actually has done this before. So he has the professional experience. The coach doesn't have to have done that before. So the mentor is someone who is within that industry, who has the professional experience, who has done this before. He knows, he has the knowledge and the skill set to support you. And there is more telling in the relationship between the mentor and a mentee. So it looks like this: the mentor is teaching.
I feel like a mentor always has like this, or the mentee always has this sort of emotional connection with the mentor, because the mentor comes from a place of perhaps trust, comfort. I'm not saying coaches are not, but I'm saying coaches at the end of the day, I mean, it's more, I don't want to say scientific, but it's more like, okay, what's the plan?
Yeah.
Here's
It's a
what-
process.
It's a process.
It's a
Mentor, I
process,
think it's
yeah.
more generic in the sense that
Yes.
here is my experience.
Yes.
Here is what I think you should do.
Yes.
Here is.
There's advice, there's telling, there is.
So I almost feel there is
experience.
like this emotional relationship between both. You know, the mentor. You know, I wish. I mean, going back, I still say to now, I wish like I had a mentor. But sometimes when things are not available to you, the best person or the best mentor could be you, yourself. When you're unable to find solution to the problem,
Yeah.
sometimes the solution is just within you.
Yeah.
You know?
It's always within you, by the way. The solution is always.
Yeah, the mentor doesn't tell you.
Yeah.
He just helps you find the solution. Am I right?
And access that inner wisdom that lives within you. And the coach does the same. So the coach or the mentor will both allow you to access that inner wisdom. That part of you that you can call it your leader within, you can call it your captain, your lighthouse. But that part of you that has the wisdom, that you trust. And you can think back in time where you had to access that for yourself and take a decision or a risk that you're like, I don't understand how I did that, but I know. I have a knowing.
Like go with your gut feeling.
Yeah, but there's that wisdom that lives within all of us. Having a mentor or a coach will allow you to access that wisdom and listen to it. And the only difference between a coach and a mentor is, as you said, that the relationship is that the mentor is more teaching and he has the experience. And yes, there's that probably also that emotional relationship. It's also there with the coach and coachee. And the difference is, if I'm using my hands, they're walking together. Side to side. Yeah, so there's that partnership. It's kind of, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but rather let me walk next to you and support you in the journey. Okay. So that's the difference.
Okay, so back you said, let's say like 15 or years ago or so, coaching was still new or didn't even exist at that time. It was interesting that I've seen, let's say, personal coaches. And it was interesting when I met you that you are an executive coach. So why isn't there anything, let's say, for, let's say, students? Let's say, I know there's somehow, but let's say, besides the teachers, you know, why isn't there, I mean, when I say school, let's say even school for high school kids, or even, let's say, before going to college. Like I always say that I don't want to go into schools and
the system.
But I always say that the schools don't prepare us, like they've been unfair to us.
Yeah, it's not the school, it's the whole education system.
The whole education system, let me put it that way. Yeah. They've been unfair to us. I would have wanted to learn, let's say, about success, about business, about relationships, about all these things before they just like throw us out over there, you know, out there and tell us, okay, here is your degree, enjoy the rest of your life. What should I do? You know, like I think the education system has been unfair to us.
I agree.
You know, I mean, it's hard to change the whole education system, but I've heard more now than before that why should somebody spend 15, 14 or 20 years studying when all the information available? I mean, that's a discussion for another time, but my point is, like, I wish in school, in high school, before they sent me out to college, university, they told me, or they gave me classes about, for instance, life 101, life for dummies, I don't care, you know, success, you know, happiness 101. Why didn't they teach me that? Why didn't they teach us that? What's your thought on this?
So my thought is,
I mean, it's just me, or actually other people that feel the same way in the sense that.
And I'm loving how passionate you are about that coming from.
Because I really wanted that. Honestly, like when I lived through my 20s and 25 and 26. Yes, you have your parents, you have people to advise you, but they advise you from your own experience. With time, things should develop. Things should progress. Things should become more. Yeah, you know, now if I go and become a teacher, now I know, or open a school, for instance, I know what I want to give people. Maybe I'm not going to be able to change the education system, but at least I'll have once in a time, let's say, bring people, let's say, like you, or bring people, let's say, that, let's say, are mentors, and have them speak to the 12th graders before they graduate.
Yeah. And this is available in schools. I mean, this is something that's already being applied in a lot of schools. I mean, we're very lucky to live in the UAE and Dubai, where this kind of mindset is there. And a really important mindset is that we're lifelong learners. Yeah, so it actually doesn't stop there. We're lifelong learners, and that's why there are coaches and mentors throughout your life as a human being. And where you're pointing to is the niche. What are the different niches that are available in the coaching industry, or maybe in the mentoring industry? And when we start to look at the niche or the specialties, there are people who work with teenagers. There are courses that are now more than before trying to
like the past, I don't know, 5-10 years,
that are actually have identified the need to actually open up the life skills. And we call it life skills because these are the skills that you need in your backpack to help you in your journey. Because life is a journey, it's not just a destination, right? And it doesn't end when you finish high school or university. That's actually where it starts. And that's the shift in the mindset. So there are many people who work with teenagers, many people who work with students that are actually specialized in coaching those life skills.
Are you seeing it more than before?
Absolutely.
Are you seeing it growing more?
Yeah. And this is, as you said, this is kind of a
big
topic
subject.
a topic by itself.
It's worldwide. I mean,
and I think the invitation here is, what is my role as a parent? How can I, as a parent, start to open up that for my kids, given the situation that we're at? What skills would I like, what conversations would I like to have with my children, or maybe the people around me? Because also, parenting needs to change. It's not only the education system, but also the way we parent.
Absolutely.
So how do we parent? Leaders in organization need to change. How do we lead? So it's really starting to look at the change that wants to happen in all the systems that we're part of, be it the education or the family system or the corporate system.
So we're all responsible.
We're all responsible.
As parents, we're all responsible.
Everyone is a leader, and everyone is responsible for their world.
I like that.
Yeah, and in Arabic, كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته. Everyone is a leader. And if I step more in my life from that place, I start to be proactive in the way that I address, approach, interact, and live through the life I'm at and living. So there's a need to acknowledge that we live in uncertain times. And what used to work before is not necessarily going to work in the future for us, right? So there is this, the Marshall Goldsmith famous quote and a book name that he says, "What got you here won't take you there."
Okay.
So when we start to look at, so now what?
Exactly, because there is a real problem.
It's uncertain. So the problem is we live in uncertain times, and what got you here won't take you there. So there is a need now as a lifelong learner to bring all of your strengths and face all of the areas, your blind spots that are there in order for you to become the best version of yourself. And that requires communicating with the people that inspire you. Talk to people. Don't hide alone and just feel stressed and overwhelmed, but rather know that as human beings, we go through experiences and we actually experience whatever we're going through our emotions. So connect with people. Connect with a coach, a mentor, a friend, a trusted person, someone in your life that you can talk to, open up. Because the more you are able to communicate and articulate what's happening with you, the more access you have to your creativity.
And it's okay to feel like terrible. Like I remember a friend told me this like 20 years ago. I told him, okay, but I feel bad. I feel terrible. He told me, you know what? Go out and have that feeling, but just go out.
That's how we
Don't
experience our life.
don't
Yes.
sit in a
In a
small
small,
and just go out.
absolutely.
It's okay to feel bad.
Yeah.
Just go out. You never know who you meet. I think there are certain things that still work. You know, even during these times for people who have that physical ability, go train. I mean,
Yeah.
go for a walk. Get in touch with the people you've lost touch with. Not just to ask them for favors, but just like open up. Like this is something another life coach told me. Don't look through a keyhole.
Yes.
You know, like zoom
Zoom
out.
out.
Things
Absolutely.
are bad. I mean, I don't have the answers. Honestly, let's be frank. I mean,
No one has.
everybody has different, and this is unprecedented times. You know, so people who are lost their jobs and have families and have kids. I mean, we are parents, so we know how difficult that is. You know, I was in a place earlier when my father, when I had a company and things went south, and my father. So I had that sort of experience of that. So, so we know the feeling of being parent and taking care of the kids, how difficult that is. So I don't
and
think,
having uncertainty.
yes, I think just to round up that we don't have the answer. No one does.
Yeah.
You know, we just have few tips that sort of could help or could work during this. And you never know when you expand and get out of that sort of small corner you're stuck, or that bed, or that you never know who you'll meet.
Mm-hmm.
Like during my last, I don't know if you, the other day I went, and through my trainer, he introduced me to one of his clients. She's into hiking. She introduced me to her friend who's also into hiking and even more races and all that. So I was like, whoa.
Expand.
Expand the, you know?
Yeah, and the potential of what's available for you and what is possible as well.
And keep hanging there during these times.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's a process that takes its time.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, there isn't really an answer that could work for everybody or for somebody even. You know, we don't have the answers. No one does.
Yeah. One of the things that I think is important is that we're not alone in all of this. We're all going through this, and the ability to wake up every morning and keep on going is important. That's the discipline to keep on going, and really trusting that as we're going through this, you need to show up in your best version, your best self, in order to really create. We're not victims of the situation, but rather we can create from the situation. Life doesn't happen to us, life happens for us.
For us.
And that's the shift that we need to
I
bring.
think there's a lesson somewhere, somehow, all this.
Yeah.
But I think also, like, just to catch up on something you said, like, as much as possible, think outside the box. Like a friend of mine, he's been out of job for the past 3-4 years. He's a sweet guy. He has 2 kids. He's really suffering. So I told him yesterday when I chatted with him, I told him, okay, you know what? Why don't we just try to stand out a bit? How many people are looking for jobs? Do you think of these numbers? Okay. I told them, do you know that on LinkedIn, a year or so back, a football club wanted, I think, a defender or a left back or a centre back, and they put an ad on LinkedIn. It was an ad or some sort of a post saying, we're looking, and this is a professional club. I don't know, in Germany or in England, was it? And they actually had someone, can you imagine, like in LinkedIn, somebody hires for a football club. And I think I saw a reverse also when a player was looking for a club, and I think he posted on Instagram or I'm not sure on LinkedIn, and he told me, I never thought of that. That was really a great idea, and he's working on it. Yeah. I don't know how he's gonna do it, considering but like, try as much as possible to go to areas that you are uncomfortable with, and try.
and where you're pointing is find your competitive edge. Find what is that make you different from the rest, what
Exactly.
makes you stand out. And that is not being the HR person or the engineer, but rather what qualities do you have that will really allow you to use your skills and knowledge. That's your competitive edge. And then you start to use it in ways that might not be conventional, but yet needed in the world that we're living in. Again, uncertain world, different ways of working.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So madness is doing the same thing and expecting different results, right? Einstein. And what we want to start to say is, actually, we need to do things differently. And that's the invitation. And for people to start to do things differently, they need to change the way they think.
Exactly.
And drop the baggage, drop the baggage, drop the baggage. The baggage could be our beliefs around something, our limitations, our boundaries, our boxes. And again, easy said than done. We can't do that in 5 minutes. And yet it's really important to identify those baggages, drop them, have conversations with the people that inspire you. Might have done that before, mentors. And really start to find your competitive edge.